and the party's breaking down along party lines here, Kate.
Yeah, absolutely not at this moment. But let's see what happens in the next few minutes. Manu, great to see you. Thank you so much. Let's get some more reaction, though, now. On the phone with me is Democratic Congressman Keith Ellison of Minnesota. Congressman, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, glad to be on with you today.
Give me a reaction to the ruling from the Supreme Court.
Well, the Supreme Court has said that no matter how bad the discriminatory language is, before, during, and after President Trump's run and his service, as long as he puts a very thin veneer of national security on top of all that discrimination and racism, they will buy it. In other words, as long as a pig has some lipstick on it, it's fine. And that is what they have said. And all I can say is that the people who believe in dignity of all people, who believe in freedom of faith and freedom of religion in America, we're not going to stop fighting. In fact, this is going to enliven us. This is going to inspire us to push even further and harder to establish the dignity of all people in this country. We're not daunted here. We're going to keep on pressing. It just proves one thing, that if you steal and rip off a Supreme Court justice, then you can try to jam any kind of nasty, racist, ugly policy you can down the throats of the American people. But we're not taking it. We're not going to. That's what I feel.
Well, I mean, Congressman, you were really upset about this. I know there are a lot of people who.
I mean, look, let me just tell you this. You know, our country has gone through some ugly days. I mean, the Supreme Court in the 1850s said that it was okay to own a black person. That was the Dred Scott decision. That decision hit the dustbin of history. So did Plessy versus Ferguson. So did Korematsu, and this one will too. I'm telling you, discrimination and racism and hatred and religious bigotry is never going to be winning in the end. So we're fired up and we're pushing forward.
Congressman, when the majority opinion writes, the proclamation is squarely within the scope of presidential authority. Indeed, neither dissent even attempts any serious arguments to the contrary, despite the fact that the plaintiff's primary contention in their briefing before the court was that the proclamation violated the statute. They said, I mean, they are saying that it is squarely, whether you like it or not, essentially, is what they're saying. It is squarely within the president's authority. And you saying what?
It is not within the president's authority to discriminate on the basis of religion. It simply isn't. And the fact that he slapped a few pieces of language on there and threw in a few other countries as an afterthought doesn't correct the fundamental and original flaw. The president said in one of his opening statements in his campaign, he wanted a complete and total ban on Muslim entry into the country. He reaffirmed that position multiple times before, during, after the election. The fact that he comes out with an initial ban and then throws a few extra countries in there and then says it's about national security doesn't change that essential fact. It does not change the fact that this is his intent. This is what he wants to do with this particular provision. And the Supreme Court majority ignoring that is simply ignoring precedent, ignoring the truth of what the president was trying to do. And I think that Justice Sotomayor put it very well. She made it very clear. You know, the United States Constitution is founded on the promise of religious liberty. The Supreme Court majority has failed to uphold that today. It's a shame. And, but look, other majorities upheld separate but equal. Other majorities upheld, like the Roger Taney Court in the 1850s said you could own a black person and and blacks have no rights what whites have to respect. We've seen majorities highly politicized, not ruling based on law, not ruling based on precedent, not ruling based on the best principles of our country, but just naked partisanship. And that's what this Supreme Court majority has done. They've misrepresented this country's best legacy, and they have literally tainted themselves.
So, Congressman, when the White House, we're waiting to hear an official statement from the White House. But when the White House is telling Jeff Zeleny that the word, I'm sure we'll get a lot, but I mean, when the White House's initial word to Jeff Zeleny was, they're saying vindication. As the first Muslim American elected to Congress, what do you say to the president?
I say that a gloating braggart is not going to win at the end of the day. I say that he has his Supreme Court tailor-made to his ugly philosophy. This partisan court, Gorsuch really should not be on the Supreme Court. In my view, he may be there, but he's not there properly. You can do that. I mean, you can jam in a Supreme Court denying a sitting president their right to appoint the Supreme Court justice. That is exactly what happened. And Gorsuch has just done what his paymasters sent him there to do. And so it's a shame. But I just know and have deep faith that the best impulses of this country are about liberty, are about equality, are about religious liberty and freedom. And we're just not going to stop, and we will prevail.
Congressman, you are leaving Congress in order to run for Attorney General of Minnesota. If you win, you're in a position maybe to do something. Will you challenge this? Can you challenge this?
Let me tell you this. I think the duty of any state Supreme Court justice, including the Minnesota Attorney General, Minnesota Attorney General, is to uphold the rights of all people. That's where our job is, to stand with people who are being trampled by powers that are much greater than themselves. And that is what I intend to do. And to me, this is a classic example of a big, giant federal government trying to roll over people just because of what their faith is. And that's the kind of thing that I will never stand by and let happen on my watch. And that's why I am running for Attorney General, because I want to stand with people who need an advocate. And that's what I do, and that's what I'm going to do.
You have people coming that want to come in from Libya, Yemen, Somalia into Minnesota. What do you tell them today? I mean, the Supreme Court had largely let the travel ban go into place. What's different today?
Well, what's different today is that before we were all hoping that the Supreme Court would find it's the best and noblest ideals of our nation and uphold them. That has changed. The Supreme Court has said, no, we're going to give right on in to the worst impulses, the divisive, discriminatory impulses, the impulses of religious bigotry. We're going to give into that. But I say to those folks who have an American dream is that there are still plenty of Americans who believe in that dream.